What did Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles do with tens of thousands of dollars meant for a children's burial garden?
Tonight, News Channel 5 investigates, looks for answers to some difficult questions about Middle Tennessee's newest congressman. Thanks for joining us tonight at 6, everybody. I'm Hunter Hoagland in for Rory.
And I'm Vicki Yates. These are questions that Andy Ogles has refused to answer, questions about how he raked in the money after the loss of a child.
And News Channel 5's chief investigative reporter Phil Williams heard from some of the people who not only opened up their hearts, but also their wallets to the congressman.
And this is a tough story to tell, Phil.
Without a doubt. In fact, we wrestled with how to tell this story. But what made us decide this was a story that had to be told was the Maury County Republicans' refusal to provide evidence that what he did was on the up and up. Congressman, this doesn't have to be a story if you can just offer some evidence it went for a good cause. This is a story about Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles that goes far beyond questions about his inflated resume.
Well, so I'm an economist. You know, as an economist,
It's a story that stems from a personal tragedy, the stillborn death of a child whose photo Ogles sometimes posts on his political social media. A story so sensitive that the people involved are reluctant to comment publicly. Another donor who called me said he almost felt guilty about calling. You feel the same way? It just feels like a topic you can't touch. It's taboo. But the story we heard repeatedly was how 2 days after the loss of the child in 2014, Ogles himself used a photo of his stillborn baby for a GoFundMe for something he called Lincoln's Place. It implored, "Help us help other families. No family should have to bury their child. No child should be alone." It promised a burial garden that would create a place for Lincoln's new play friends, a life-size statue of Jesus watching over the children, along with benches for families to sit while surrounded by flowers. And people responded to Ogles' emotional plea, donating almost $25,000. GoFundMe confirms Ogles got the money. You want to believe that that money went to something good. Yet the donors we spoke with described what they called gnawing questions about what happened to those funds. Of course, this would not be a story if the future congressman had taken the money and used it as promised, or at least for a good cause. But here in the cemetery where Lincoln is buried, we checked from one corner to another. And just like the tipsters had feared, there is no children's burial garden, no benches for families to sit, no life-size statue of Jesus. In fact, a Tennessean newspaper story a year after the GoFundMe diplomatically raised the question of what happened with the money, quoting Ogles as blaming government bureaucracy. He claimed, "What we found over the past year as we have been going through this process is that burials are heavily regulated." He insisted none of the money had been spent. A local funeral director was also quoted saying she still planned to meet with the family to help organize a unified effort to aid parents dealing with the financial and emotional trauma of bearing children. 8 years later, that funeral director now says, quote, "Back at that time, we could have helped them do something, but they never came back to us." And the manager at the cemetery where Lincoln is buried says he met with Ogles a couple of times, but then he never came back. Neither knows what happened to the nearly $25,000 that people contributed. Honestly, in this case, I hope he's able to provide me with documentation that the money went for a good cause. So we asked the congressman's office, but we never got an answer from them. Hey, Congressman, can we talk to you? Nor from Ogles himself. What did you do with the money that people donated for Lincoln's Place? Congressman, this doesn't have to be a story if you can just offer some evidence it went for a good cause. In the freshman congressman, some may see reminders of George Santos.
I knew I was being scammed.
And the disabled veteran whose service dog needed life-saving surgery. George Santos ran a GoFundMe, but then kept the money. The dog later died. What would be your message to Andy Ogles? This donor's message, "Tell us what you did. Tell us where the money went." It was a message. Was the money used the way you said it was? Congressman, are you not concerned about how this looks? Apparently lost on the congressman. Candidate Ogles did speak about the loss of the child at one political event last summer, describing how it was difficult to get insurance to pay the medical bills He somehow blamed Obamacare, claiming it prevented his health insurance and his wife's health insurance from talking to each other and working out who would pay. But as we've seen in other cases with Andy Ogles, it's just really hard to know what to believe.
It is, and you've been covering all the angles. As far as you've been able to tell, though, did he just keep all this money?
Well, I did speak with one donor who said that he asked Andy Ogles directly what he did with the money. He says Ogles refused to give him a straight answer, so he insisted on getting his money back, and he did. But other donors tell me they were never given that option.
And the door is always open for him to explain, right?
Absolutely. We would love for him to sit down and show us that it went for a good cause, but that's up to him.
All right. Thanks so much, Phil.